Long before the world froze beneath ice and the great woolly mammoths marched across the tundra, there was another giant that ruled the earth. It was a creature so massive that even the largest elephant alive today would seem small beside it. It was taller than a giraffe, heavier than a bus, and older than imagination. It was the forgotten giant known as Paraceratherium, the greatest land mammal that ever lived. If you were to stand beside it, your eyes would barely reach the height of its knee. Its head towered nearly 20 feet above the ground, and its body stretched more than 30 feet in length. It weighed close to 20 tons, the same as 4 adult African elephants combined. It was a gentle colossus, a plant-eating titan that wandered ancient plains long before humans appeared. Yet despite its size and power, Paraceratherium has been largely erased from popular memory. It was the king of a forgotten age, a reminder that the world after the dinosaurs was no less extraordinary. The story of this forgotten mammal begins about 35 million years ago, during the late Eocene and early Oligocene epochs. The dinosaurs had been gone for millions of years, wiped out by the great extinction that ended their reign. In their place, mammals had risen to dominate the planet. Some became swift hunters, others grew into enormous grazers. The Earth was still warm then, its continents slowly drifting toward their modern shapes. Forests spread across Asia, Africa, and Europe, and rivers wound through broad grasslands. In this thriving landscape, the ancestors of horses, elephants, and rhinos roamed freely. Among them, one group began to evolve toward greatness. The early rhinoceroses were not the squat, horned animals we know today. They were long-legged and hornless, adapted for running rather than charging. Over millions of years, some of them began to grow, first slowly, then spectacularly. Their descendants would become Paraceratherium, a creature so tall that it could reach the highest treetops, plucking leaves no other mammal could touch. Imagine the plains of Central Asia 30 million years ago. The air is thick with heat and dust. Vast herds of ancient mammals graze on low shrubs and ferns. Small three-toed horses gallop in the distance, and giant pig-like creatures snort near the watering holes. Amid this scene, the ground trembles. From behind a line of trees, a shadow appears, then another. A pair of Paraceratherium strides slowly into view, their long necks swaying as they move. Each step sinks deep into the earth, leaving round footprints the size of barrels. Their bodies are massive yet graceful. Their skin, thick and gray, ripples gently over powerful muscles. They have no horns, no tusks, no armor, only size and calm confidence. Their heads are narrow, with a long upper lip that can reach and pull branches toward their mouths. They move slowly but steadily, stripping entire trees clean of leaves before turning to find the next. When they lift their heads to full height, they can browse from treetops 30 feet above the ground. It is a feeding strategy no other land animal has matched since. Life for such a giant was surprisingly peaceful. Few predators dared to challenge it. The largest carnivores of the time, creatures like hyaenodon and entelodonts, were deadly hunters but tiny beside the Paraceratherium. They might have scavenged from the carcasses of the fallen, but they posed little threat to a healthy adult. Only the young or the weak were vulnerable, and the herds likely guarded their calves carefully, surrounding them with their towering bodies when danger approached. But the life of a giant came with its own challenges. Finding enough food to sustain 20 tons of muscle was a daily battle. Paraceratherium had to travel constantly, following the growth of vegetation across vast distances. They likely migrated seasonally, moving from one fertile valley to another as plants grew and withered. Their massive lungs drew in huge volumes of air, their hearts pumped blood up those long necks, and their bones carried unimaginable weight with each stride. Scientists believe that Paraceratherium's closest living relatives are modern rhinoceroses, though the connection is not obvious at first glance. It had no horn and a very different body structure, yet its skull and teeth bear the marks of rhino ancestry, large molars for grinding plant matter and nasal bones shaped for powerful breathing. It was part of a diverse family of prehistoric rhinos, some small and agile, others large and lumbering, but none reached its sheer scale. Fossil discoveries have painted a fascinating picture of this creature's world. The first remains were uncovered in the early 20th century in the deserts of Pakistan. The explorer and paleontologist Clive Forster Cooper was the first to recognize the immense size of the bones. At first, the skeletons seemed too large to be a mammal. The leg bones were enormous, the skull long and deep, and the vertebrae thicker than a man's chest. As more fossils appeared across Asia, from China to Kazakhstan to Mongolia, the true magnitude of this species became clear. These were not isolated giants, but members of a thriving lineage that had once ruled a continent. The ancient environment they inhabited was dramatically different from what those regions look like today. Where now there are arid deserts and rocky mountains, there were once vast river basins and forests. Lush vegetation grew along waterways, feeding countless herbivores. The climate was warmer and wetter, and the land was dotted with lakes and open woodlands. It was the perfect paradise for an animal that depended on trees for survival. Paraceratherium's height gave it a tremendous advantage. Like giraffes in modern Africa, it could feed on leaves and branches that were unreachable to smaller animals. Its long neck, supported by thick muscles and strong vertebrae, gave it both reach and flexibility. Despite its size, it likely moved with surprising grace. Paleontologists studying its leg bones have found them to be elongated and column-like, built to carry weight efficiently over long distances. Its feet were broad, spreading its mass across the ground much like the feet of elephants. When it walked, the earth must have vibrated with each step. For millions of years, Paraceratherium thrived. It spread across much of Eurasia, adapting to different environments from river valleys to drier plains. Its populations likely moved in loose herds, their migrations shaping the ecosystems they passed through. Each herd could clear an enormous area of vegetation before moving on, allowing new plants to grow in their wake. Their droppings would have fertilized the soil, spreading seeds and nutrients far and wide. They were gardeners of their world, shaping it as much as they depended on it. But even giants cannot escape the passage of time. The world began to change. As the Oligocene epoch progressed, the climate cooled. Forests retreated, replaced by open grasslands. The trees that Paraceratherium depended upon grew scarcer, forcing the herds to travel farther in search of food. New competitors evolved smaller, faster herbivores that could survive on tougher grasses. Predators adapted as well. Large carnivorous mammals began to appear, more coordinated and dangerous than before. Gradually, the population of the great Paraceratherium began to decline. Their enormous size, once their greatest strength, became a burden in a world that no longer favored giants. A single drought could destroy a valley's vegetation and starve an entire herd. Younger species of mammals, more flexible and efficient, took over the niches the giants had once dominated. Eventually, the last of them vanished, leaving behind only their bones as whispers of their greatness. Today, when people imagine prehistoric giants, they think of dinosaurs or woolly mammoths. Yet Paraceratherium was far larger than either. The woolly mammoth, for all its fame, weighed perhaps 10 tons and stood around 12 feet tall. Paraceratherium doubled that. Its shoulders were higher than a mammoth's head. Its skull alone measured more than 4 feet in length, large enough to fit a grown man inside. It was the true colossus of the mammalian world, a reminder that nature's imagination did not end with the extinction of the dinosaurs. What makes this forgotten titan so fascinating is how quietly it ruled. Unlike the roaring predators of prehistory, Paraceratherium left behind no evidence of aggression, no weapons or horns, no scars of war. Its reign was peaceful and unchallenged, based not on violence but on balance. It lived in harmony with the forests, shaping them as it moved, and when it disappeared, it left behind no destruction, only silence. Scientists still debate why exactly it vanished. Some point to climate change and the shrinking of its forest habitat. Others suggest that competition with smaller species of rhinoceroses and other herbivores made survival impossible. Perhaps disease played a role, or a slow decline in population made it too fragile to recover from environmental stress. Whatever the cause, its disappearance marked the end of an era. After Paraceratherium, no land mammal ever reached its size again. The age of true giants was over. Standing in a museum today, gazing up at reconstructed bones of this enormous animal, it is hard not to feel awe. Its skeleton arches toward the ceiling, its legs like marble pillars, its neck stretching forward as though still searching for leaves. You can almost imagine the sound of its breath, deep and slow, echoing through ancient forests. You can imagine its eyes, calm and intelligent, watching the smaller creatures below. Though forgotten by most, Paraceratherium's legacy lives quietly in its descendants. The modern rhinoceros, though far smaller, carries the same heavy frame, the same sturdy bones, the same quiet strength. When a rhino moves across the African plain, it is easy to see a shadow of its ancestors' grandeur, a glimpse of a time when mammals reached for the sky and conquered it. In the story of life on Earth, Paraceratherium stands as a symbol of possibility. It reminds us that the age after the dinosaurs was not empty but full of wonders. The world rebuilt itself with new rulers, mammals that grew, adapted, and pushed the limits of what life could become. The giant that once towered above all others may have vanished, but its story endures in stone and imagination. If you could walk beside one of these titans, you would hear the creak of trees bending under its weight, the soft thunder of its footsteps, the sigh of leaves being torn from high branches. The wind would carry the smell of fresh greenery and damp earth. The world would feel vast and alive, pulsing with warmth and motion. It would not feel alien, it would feel ancient, familiar, like the echo of something deep within life itself. Paraceratherium may be gone, but the planet remembers. Every fossil, every sediment layer, every trace of ancient soil tells its story. It was the peaceful giant of a forgotten world, a creature that redefined what it meant to be alive. Long before humanity, before mammoths, before even the Ice Age, there was a time when a mammal taller than a giraffe and heavier than a dozen elephants walked the earth. It ruled not with claws or fangs, but with quiet strength, a monument to nature's ability to dream on an impossible scale. And when it finally disappeared, the forests it once shaped continued to grow. The rivers it followed still flowed. Life, as it always does, adapted and moved on. Yet somewhere in those ancient plains, perhaps beneath layers of dust and rock, its bones still rest, waiting to remind us that even in the forgotten chapters of Earth's story, there were giants that dwarfed all that came after.